Anything can happen any moment. I never switch off my phone, never.
There is a rumour on the internet that you're a Watford fan. How does that happen for a guy from Napoli?
I didn't even understand how it was possible that an English club had an Italian owner. It was really special to me.
You're saying go to a Real Betis game and go to a Crystal Palace game.
Exactly.
I don't think that's what people would expect you to say, I'll be honest.
I know, but if you want the experience, that's the case.
Joining me today is social media sensation Fabrizio Romano. Welcome to Liberty Rock Sports. Fabrizio Romano, thank you for joining me this morning. Very much appreciate your time. How is it being here in London?
Always fantastic. I love the city, I love the atmosphere. It's football city because there is like 5 games per day every day, so I love that.
And do you get a chance to go to many games when you're over in different cities, or?
Yeah, that's what I try to do. For passion, because I love the game, and also because it's an opportunity to meet football people, you know? So it's about sources, friends and passion. It's a mix of everything. So I always try to go to the games, meet maybe players, directors, agents, or whoever is at the game.
So if I wind you all the way back to, you're 16 years old in 2009, you talk about passion there. I'm sure your passion, being an Italian man, has been for football all the way through. You started doing journalism. What excited you about journalism, and what made you want to get into it?
Look, to be very honest with you, the problem is that I loved football, but I didn't have the skills to play football. So, you know, I think behind every journalist story, probably there is also this, that you want to be a part of the game, but you can't be part of the game. And I was lucky enough to understand that already when I was like 9 or 10 years old. So I had enough time to prepare my future. And I love journalism also thanks to my father, because he's always been, you know, by the newspapers every single day, get all the information, always follow everything about football. So passion has been absolutely crucial. I love the game since I remember my life. So since I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, and then it all started with that, with the passion from, again, my family, my father, my brother as well, and then my city. Living in Napoli when I was a kid. In Napoli is like South America. Football is really everywhere. You play in the streets, and so it was all about football. And so that's how I started my journey, thinking how I can get there. And journalism was immediately one of my passions, for sure.
Absolutely. And were you aware of, going back a bit, probably maybe before you were born, of the passion for Italian football in this country? You've probably not seen Football Italia that was around when I was a child, for example. The passion for Italian football, I know you mentioned there, Napoli, it's obviously, you know, like South America. It is really worldwide for Italian football, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely, because there was an incredible number of top players at the time, and so it was probably also easier compared to today to get closer to the passion for football, because you had incredible names. The teams were fantastic at the time. The national team, if you remember the names, it was really proud to have players like Totti, Del Piero, Cannavaro, Buffon, incredible top players every single World Cup or Euro. So it was really easy to enter into football and to get into this world with passion. So for me as a kid, it was my dream to do something into football. And again, journalism was my idea, started to be my idea since I was 14, 15, because I always loved to write, first of all. I didn't expect to start into a TV, that's what I did. But it wasn't my expectation when I was maybe 14, 15. Maybe my plan was to be a writer on a newspaper or something like that. And then it changed, but always about the passion, for sure.
Absolutely. And so we'll take you back to that. And 2011 was your big breakthrough moment. We all know the transfer of Icardi and Delafeu. We all know what happened there. But take us through it from your point. You know, you get that phone call or you get that little nugget of information. How did that happen?
No, I don't know, because, you know, I don't know how that guy got my number. I still don't know how that guy got my number, because he doesn't remember as well. It's a long time ago. Every time he tells me, I don't know who sent me your number, but it was the best decision of my life, and of my life as well, because it really changed my life. But I still remember that moment. I was at my home in Napoli with my family, of course, living there at that time. And this guy called me and asked me if there was some way to talk about these players, because it was a completely different world. Imagine that at that time you didn't have the chance to maybe check the players. I mean, normal people, football people, of course, but normal people not. To check how is a young player playing for the 2nd or 3rd team of Barcelona. And so he was getting in a good relationship with all of them there, with Icardi, with Delafeu. And so it was an opportunity for me to explore this world of new players, talents. I always loved young football, so to see new talents coming on the stage. And for him, obviously, to get closer to the player. So that's how it all started. For me, it was like win-win, because I didn't have anything to lose. So I said, okay, let's do that. Tell me about the skills of these players, what he's doing. And he said he scored, 20 goals in one season, this and that. And so I posted everything. And since that moment, it all started, because my biggest luck is that this guy started working with Icardi. And since that moment, he started being my first source into the football industry.
So take me back to that picture where you're looking at your phone and you've tweeted, obviously, what's happening and all of that. I can imagine it's going, you've got notifications switched on. I'd take
no,
it's going,
it was on a website, you know. I wasn't even on Twitter at that time.
Really?
I didn't have an account on social media. I was absolutely no one. I was just a kid writing on a website. So I didn't have Twitter at that time. Wow. It was just on a website in Italy that was linked to Inter. And so because Icardi was Inter fan, at that time he was like, okay, you can maybe put something also about that Icardi is a big Inter fan. At that time, Inter-Barcelona was a connection because they used to play against each other in the Champions League twice. Yep. When Inter won the Champions League, they played against in the group, and then in the semi-final with Inter winning the cup that season. And so, you know, was also a nice story about the player. And so I posted on this website. But for me, I wasn't understanding really what was going on because, again, I was just a kid trying to see what's going on in this industry. I wasn't planning for anything big coming out of that. And then, again, the biggest lack of that story is that this guy started working with Icardi. Icardi came to Italy, and I started having information on a player who started doing fantastic immediately. So the timing was really perfect, but for me at the time, was really completely unexpected.
You've hit the jackpot in a way, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly, but didn't expect that at all.
Fantastic. And then in 2012, Sky Italia come calling, and that obviously gives you and opens doors to lots of different people, networking. For someone who's just starting out in journalism or someone who is looking to start a podcast or get big in socials, how do you approach that? Is it a case of walking up to people at parties? Is it a case of getting to know them? How do you approach that?
No, for me it was like university, you know. Okay. I remember that when I entered there, for me it was like Disneyland because you have the opportunity to meet with many top journalists, among the best we had in Italy at the time. And so for me it was unbelievable. I was just a kid who 2 years ago was watching the TV all the time, all the TV shows on Sky, and then get there. Was unbelievable. So you have this, of course, feeling that you want to learn and learn and learn every day. So that was my mission. But also I immediately understood after 1 year that I wanted to get out of that and to be on the street. So I loved the opportunity to be, obviously, in the same headquarters with many top people, top journalists. You can learn every single day. But at the same time, I had this feeling that I wanted to be in the street because it was the perfect opportunity to meet football people. So I was already okay with journalists. It was obviously a big opportunity to meet them. But then I wanted something different. I wanted to be in the street, and it's something that many journalists didn't want to do at the time, I remember. Obviously, it's less comfortable to be in the street. It can be cold in Milan in January. It can be very hot in the summer. So people don't love that kind of job. But for me, it was the start of a big opportunity.
And obviously, being in Italian football, we talked about how much it is a religion in certain parts of the country. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to have been to a Milan derby as well, which is just something else that a boy coming from southeast London is unreal. So, you know, when you're working that, do you sometimes have to pinch yourself and go, wow, I am in this amazing business? especially when you have the opportunity to try something that, again, if you ask me when I was 16, 15, 17, what are you dreaming of in this industry? I was never going to imagine that one day you have the chance, I don't know, to be pitch side in some incredible games and people recognize you. Sometimes, you have to pinch yourself and say what's going on because I still don't understand in some moments how that was possible because, again, you just dream of that, but not even at that level. If you ask me at 17, I was going to say yes to my biggest dream of something completely different in terms of level. So it's unbelievable to have the opportunity, as you mentioned, to go to big games, maybe Champions League finals, to meet with legends, to meet with the players, to be actually there. And sometimes you have to stop and say, okay, what's going on in my life? Because otherwise you just run with all the news, with all the information, with all these people you meet, and you don't enjoy what you're doing. Sometimes I have to do that. And that's one of the things, isn't it? Do your friends treat you differently now? Or have you still got a group of friends that kind of pull you down when you need to be pulled down?
No, I have exactly the same friends I used to have before all of this started on social media. Exactly the same group. We are always all together. And I think this is one of the biggest secrets, you know, because at the end, if you change your attitude, if you change your friends, if you change whatever you do every single day, I think this is going to be a problem. My friends respect me, understand how I live. It's not easy to be my friend because, okay, you can have access to many things. Maybe we'll go to games together, but at the same time, maybe you want to enjoy a dinner or a lunch and I'm on my phone all the time. So it's not easy. But this is one of the biggest secrets because at the end, you are supported by people who trusted you and is your friend since before all this have started. So that's why for me it's absolutely crucial.
And that's the point I wanted to touch on there. Obviously, Italian families, they like to eat together, they like to, you know, do lots of things together. Is it awkward for you whether you're with your parents or you're with your family and you're sat there going, I just need to send this text or I just need to get this? How does that work?
Let me say, that's the reason why I'm single. But at the same time, you know, when I go to my family, maybe in Napoli, they're still staying there. I try to go when I know there is more relaxed. For example, there is international break or Christmas or this kind of moments, and I know I can spend more normal time with them. moment. So I always try to save some time for my family to be more kind of normal.
Yeah.
But there are still big moments when you need to post something, you need to call someone, and when you have your little, I don't know, cousins or nephews around and they want to stay with you and you are on phone, it's not easy, but it's part of my life.
So, and that's obviously become part of your life. So if we touch on that, how intrusive is it? Are you getting calls, because of time zones, obviously, there may be something from the MLS happening while you're asleep here in Europe. How does that work for you? Are you constantly on edge through a transfer window? Is your phone constantly going? Talk us through it.
I never switch off my phone, never. I think last time I did that, I was still in Napoli, so I was maybe 16 or 17. Okay. I never switch off my phone, never, because as you mentioned, anything can happen any moment. So you have to be always ready. Of course, I always say that in journalism, in transfer journalism, you can be active or passive in some moments. There are moments like when the transfer window is closed, you can be more passive. So if someone is calling you and telling you, oh, look, this player is going to this club, maybe free agent or this sort of things. I remember last year there was Rabiot to Olympique Marseille. I was not actively calling people to get information on Rabiot. I got the information from someone in the industry calling me and saying Rabiot tomorrow will do his medical at Marseille. So it was out of the summer window. It was free agent move. So I was just receiving the information. And in that moment, it's really important to have your phone always available. Yeah. Then, obviously, during the transfer window, you are very active. So it's yourself going to contact people, to get in touch with people, and to try to get information on that player, on that club, because you need that information in that moment.
And what's more important for you? Because we see that everybody's scrambling to break it first. You've got all the different skies around Europe. You've got, obviously, the big broadcasters, NBC and Fox in America. So everybody's trying to break that first. Is it important for you to get something out first on social media, or are you more someone that would want to fact check it and put quality out before you put quantity out?
Look, my mission has always been to be accurate, to be honest. So for me, the priority has always been to be accurate. Then if you can be accurate and first, this is the perfect news. So that's the mission for all of us who work in journalism and in transfer journalism. So you always try to be first. And I think you don't have to lose that desire to be the first one, because otherwise, you can be relaxed and you're going to miss on many news, miss on many details. So it's important to stay focused, and to have the opportunity to be first is always fantastic. But being accurate is always the priority. So you have to be 100% sure about what you are putting out, and also trying to understand your responsibility, because in some moments you can really make a deal collapse because of an information, maybe create a problem to a club, a player, an agent. So always think twice before posting. Now it's really important. Maybe when I was younger, it was easier to go and post immediately. Now you have to think about all the relationships you have. Maybe posting now can create a problem to that person, to that club, to that agent, to that director. And so it's always important to pick the right timing.
And on that point, Lucas Paquetá was possibly moving in the last transfer window. Can you talk us through what kind of, because it was a little bit of social media that stopped that, wasn't it? That transfer going through.
Yeah, as well as I'm aware, yes. Then of course anyone can say what they want from the clubs, from the agents, from the player. I understand that, but I'm 100% sure, but really 100% sure that deal was going to happen without social media movement. Then many people say, so you made the deal collapse. No, that's not the case, because other journalists were putting the information out during the day. Aston Villa and Paquetá, negotiations, talks. Then I went strong because I'm told that the verbal agreement was getting very close. It was not a done deal yet, but was getting very close. And then in that moment, West Ham, I think, decided after the reaction also from the fans to say, okay, this deal is off. We call the deal off. And that's why Villa went to sign Harvey Elliott in the final 24 hours of the window. But I think this is part of the game. It can happen. It's absolutely part of the game. Sometimes I feel sorry because I don't want to create a problem to people. But at the same time, I can stay silent if others are already reporting the news. I can understand if the news is top secret and you don't want to break first because you don't want to create a problem. But if the news is already around, I think it's part of my job to report the news. I can't pay the price of being that big and you don't break stories anymore. So you still have to do your job as a journalist, even if sometimes can create a problem to the deal. Maybe other journalists don't have that impact, but for me, it doesn't matter. I just have to try to do my best, and I respect all the others who share the information.
And everyone knows when you say your famous catchphrase, that is it. It is that's the go point for a transfer. We know then that's almost like you're breaking news on CNN if it's an international event. You say your catchphrase and it's a go. So, but wind it right the way back. How do you get the sniff of a first transfer? Have you got people ringing you? Are you ringing them? How is it working? Obviously, it's evolved over time, but how does that work now? So for the last transfer window, for example, are people coming to you? Is it agents? Is it players? How does it work?
Look, it can really be any person in the world. Then obviously, it depends. If a club owner is calling you and you post the news, you are 100% sure that story is true. If it's an agent, maybe you need to check with the clubs before posting that story. It depends also the level of the agent. It can be a very important agent and they usually never lie, or it can be a small agent, so you need to check twice, 3, 4, 5 times before posting the news. every single news has its own story. There is no process that you use for all the news. Every single story, because maybe I can know the player or I can get in touch with the agent if the news is coming from the club. So I always try to coordinate all my contacts before posting something out, even if it's a small news or in a small player or in a small league. I always try to do that because it's the best way to maintain relationships. Now, for me, the most difficult part in my job is to maintain relationships. More than finding news, which is becoming, I can't say easy because every day you have to fight, but you can get there. The difficult part is to maintain relationships because when you break a story, when you post a story, you can create a problem to people. And so you have to make sure that you are coordinating the right timing. But this can come from anyone. It can come from an agent. It can come from a player himself. Sometimes it can happen. It can come from a club owner, a club director, social media people in the club, secretary of the club sometimes can happen. So it can be many people involved in the game. That's the big difference compared to the past.
And you touched on it a minute ago. Do people use you as a test, kind of a litmus test, so that they ring you up and say, look, this person might move to this club. Would you put a rumour out? Does that kind of, we've seen it obviously with Lucas Paquetá, we just spoke about. Do they use you a little bit sometimes just to try and test the water with fans?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think sometimes they can try to do some strategy to try to get me publish the news and this sort of things. Yeah. But now they know that I know so many people in the industry that I'm not going to fall into that. Maybe a few years ago it could happen because I was on a different level as a journalist. So maybe you can trust someone who is not giving you the right information. I remember once there was a story about Disasi, the Chelsea defender, that was a guy who was telling me constantly that the player might go to Newcastle, to Man United. And when the news broke about Chelsea, I was quite surprised. And so, in that moment I got upset because I was saying that's not the right way to do things when you get in touch with a journalist, on my point of view, of course. But when someone is trying to give you something false, it's different. And for me, I think now they know that I can check the news with many people, and so they can maybe break the bridge they have with me, and I'm going to speak in a negative way about them to other people in the industry. That's what I'm always going to do. If someone is lying, I'm going to do my best to give that something in return.
Absolutely. So the window shuts. It's whatever time, either 7 p.m, midnight, whatever time zone you happen to be in at the time. The window shuts. Do you take a big, deep breath and collectively just slouch in your chair and go, switch yourself off for a couple of days? Or how do you come down from all that massive
Unfortunately, the window is switching off in different moments. Yes. So you still have Turkey, Saudi, but the moment where at midnight all the windows are closed, including Spain, for example, last summer, for me, it's the best moment of the year, to be honest. I can relax a bit. It's like my brain is switching off and saying, okay, now you can live a normal life. Because especially the final 2-3 weeks of the window, the final 2-3 weeks of August, it's really difficult. It's really difficult because you have to be on point every single day, every single moment. You can distract 1 second. Sometimes maybe you plan to go to sleep at 3 and maybe there is Xavi Simons doing his medical with Tottenham overnight and you go to sleep at 6 and you wake up at 8. So maybe you sleep 2 hours, but you still need to be fresh. It's not just about sleeping 2 hours. You need to be fresh with your brain to call the right people, to get the right information, to go live and share the news with people. So I always arrive to the final days of the window really, really tired, especially with my brain. So it's not that easy. But of course, when the moment arrives, it's the best moment of the year.
And for you, of course, in your brain, you're doing things in different languages as well, which is obviously quite a thing to do. And we appreciate you doing this in English.
Thank you.
And so you've done that. You've switched off, and all the windows are closed. Are you someone who then travels around looking at different matches? Are you almost thinking towards the next transfer window, or do you literally take a break from it for a little while?
No, I always try to think that probably September, October is the moment where really nothing is happening in the industry, and so it's the right moment maybe to switch off a bit, to have more kind of normal life. So if sometimes I want to do something that I can't do during the transfer windows, obviously I do that. Also in terms of private life, I can do normal things as all the people do. Then, of course, when November started to arrive, you start thinking, even when you go around for all the games, for all the matches, and you go to meet people, you start thinking about the January window. So this club maybe need to sign that player. It can become very obvious, maybe because of injuries or maybe because they have a need in that position. And so every time you go around, you start thinking. For me, it's like a puzzle as a journalist, When you have a puzzle in your mind, you need to put the right pieces. And so in January it's quite easy because you already know the clubs, what they need. If you watch all the games, if you follow the games, you know what they need, and you speak to people, you know what they need. The most difficult moment, for example, is in May for me. In May, when the summer transfer window is about to start, the puzzle is completely empty. So you need to find the right pieces for every single team, and it's not easy at all. So that's the difficult moment. But for sure, my also travels, for example, are also based on that. I try to go to games where I know I can meet people that can be important for me at the right moment during the transfer window.
Fantastic. And look, you are a big social media star. There's no getting away from that. You are, you're known worldwide, from Australia right the way across to the west coast of America.
Thank you.
How do you deal with the negative side? Because look, there will be people out there that don't like what you do, and there are people obviously out there that are affiliated. We've talked about how it is a religion in some places, and they might think you're the cause of somebody moving. How do you deal with the negativity that comes your way?
I always deal with, as my mother taught me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, she was saying, when you go to sleep and you feel relaxed with yourself, you didn't do anything wrong, it's okay. And that's my mentality. When I go to sleep, I'm always very relaxed. I didn't do anything wrong, anything on purpose, or creating a problem to someone. It's not my style. I didn't do anything wrong in my life, so I'm really, really relaxed. Then Jose Mourinho once said that not even Jesus Christ was appreciated by everyone, so you can't be perfect. And I really love that quote. When I met him, I told him that quote was fantastic, because it's the reality on social media, especially many people without a face, just with a nickname, they just go there and try to attack you. And sometimes I text them in private, say, okay, let's have a conversation. Give me your name, your face, and let's have a conversation. If you want in public, no problem. Take a platform on YouTube, wherever you want, and let's have a conversation. I can explain to you, but I want to see who you are, your name, and then we have a conversation. And they always disappear. So it's always very easy to do that, I think. So I'm here. I have nothing to hide. If people want to ask me, I'm more than happy to answer. But again, I'm very relaxed, and I understand that sometimes there can be negativity. But when you get that big on social media, I think it's also obvious it's impossible to be appreciated by everyone.
The important wisdom of an Italian mother, bringing
Exactly.
you back down to earth.
Always.
And look, you mentioned there Jose Mourinho, and is there anyone you've ever met where you've kind of sat back in the chair for a second and gone, wow, I'm sitting with this person? Or do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel a little bit starstruck?
Yeah. I mean, in the last year when I had the chance to meet with Messi and Ronaldo, it was different, because with Messi was obviously a scheduled interview, so I was expecting that moment.
Okay.
But when Messi entered the room, of course, the feeling was unbelievable. Yeah, I was like, okay, what's going on? Because, you start thinking of when you were a kid, and for me, obviously Messi for my generation was together with Cristiano on a different planet, and so it was a special moment. With Cristiano was not planned moment, because I was in Saudi attending the training of Al Nassr. I wasn't even planning to go to the game. I was just there for an event. And then before my flight, I had the flight at the end of the second half. So I said, okay, let's go to see the first half, and then we go to the airport. Yeah. And just there at the training, while there was the pre-match training session, just Cristiano came and said, Fabrizio, grande Fabrizio. And for me, it was like, what's going on here? So it was really surprising. It was kind of shock in a positive way. So those two moments will stay with me forever.
Fantastic. And look, we know how successful you are, and you've made a great career out of it. You were put onto the Forbes 30 under 30 in 2022. That's a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is, because, as I always say, it's important to obviously create your journalistic career, but at the same time also to have the right strategy to share all the news, to build your network, but also to create your business in the right way. And so for me, obviously, when it's about Forbes, it's about the opportunity to make people understand how your business is working. And what I'm really proud about is that people never had to pay €1 for my information, €1 for my channels. Many people come to me, many agencies in 10 years coming to me and say, why you don't create an app, you call it Here We Go or Fabrizio, you make people pay like Netflix, I don't know, €2, €3 per month. And then with 40 million followers, you can be easily multi-millionaire. But for me, people shouldn't pay for the news.
And I think that's what keeps you grounded. And that's what, I'm a football fan at heart. Everybody's a football fan. And that's why people go to you, I think, because they trust your information. I think because they know that you're not being paid in the background, your information becomes trusted, doesn't it?
Yeah, but also they don't have to pay. I think when you pay maybe for a TV, you are still paying for that information. When you pay for a website, there is a paywall maybe on an article, you are still paying for that information. When you go on a YouTube channel, maybe there is premium content, you are paying for that information. For me, there is nothing. You don't have to pay anywhere, and you will never have to pay for my information. For me, the information has to be free. Then, if I'm wrong, okay, you can criticize me as a journalist, but you can never tell me I pay for this service and this service is not working. So if you are in Africa, if you are in Russia, if you are in Australia, if you are in Italy, in England, wherever you are, you have the same service, and what you earn is not having an impact on what you pay for my service. So for me, that's always the number one mission.
So you've obviously got that award, Best Football Journalist, Globe Soccer Awards, Best Digital Journalist. Are you now like a footballer? Do you have a trophy room? Are they all up there?
No, not yet. I would love to do that one day, but no, at the moment it's all very confusing at my place. So I receive these and I put on a table and I get back to work because I don't want to waste my time. I'm always running. That's the problem. Probably.
So if I walk around your house, there's little awards scattered all over the place, are there? Or are they all in one place?
Yeah, no. It's really confusing. Trust me, one can be in the kitchen, the other one can be in the living room, and the other one wherever. So it's really confusing at the moment, but one day I will get there. there.
There is a rumour on the internet that you're a Watford fan. How does that happen for a guy from Napoli?
Because of video games, you know. I've always been a big fan of video games, whether it's FIFA, Football Manager, whatever it is. I've always been a big fan. And for me, Watford, when I was a kid, I always had this passion for international football. And Watford, since I was a kid, had this Italian ownership that for me was surprising. When I was like very young, I didn't even understand how it was possible that an English club had an Italian owner. It was really special to me.
Yeah.
And so to have this Pozzo family in the background, and then also all the players going, usually a lot of players going from Serie A to Watford. So that's how it started. I was always playing with Watford, all the career mode games. And it's always been my passion. Then I went there. It was the first extra Italy game I saw in my life. And was incredible for me. It was also very different compared to Italy. I still remember the feeling I had the first time, because in Italy when you go to the stadium it's impossible to meet, for example, with the players after the game. For us in Italy, the players are like something like on another planet. Then I went to Watford, and after the game I remember all the players were in the street out of the stadium. I was like, what is this? It's a dream. So all a mix of fantastic emotions I felt there.
Well, the way Watford go through managers, have you ever thought about maybe managing Watford?
Yeah, maybe one day. No. I'm not going to do anything else in the industry at the moment. No.
And you're quite happy. Obviously, we touched on earlier about your football, and a bit like myself, I qualified as a referee rather than, because I was not very good at football at all. Is this the closest you can get, and do you feel really connected with this game?
I do, because now there is the opportunity also to follow many games, to know many people, to have a lot of insights about the game, and so I feel really, really connected. Sometimes also I have the opportunity to meet new people, and sometimes football can change very quickly. Like what happened with Saudi was an opportunity. If you ask me about Saudi 3-4 years ago, I didn't have any idea about who is running the clubs, what's going on there. Now, since Cristiano went there, it completely changed the feeling, and you get in touch with many new people. You have new contacts, new sources. So it's always evolving. You always have to be on point. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the connections.
And the Middle East is a growing market. It's obviously always been interested in European football with the Champions League and stuff like that. Do you see, we've seen a lot of people go there, a lot of high-profile names. Obviously, you mentioned Cristiano there. Steven Gerrard was there from an English point of view. Do you think we're going to see more people go to Saudi, or is it a bit like the Chinese Super League? It's kind of flattened out now.
No, I think it's going to continue. That's my feeling. Also talking to many people there, but also here in Europe, I have a feeling that they're already planning for new signings. For example, after the World Cup, maybe many players this summer, many top players didn't want to move because of the World Cup. Maybe they were scared to lose their spot in the national team, and so they didn't want to move this summer. But I think after the World Cup, many other top players will decide to move to Saudi. So that's my expectation. I think it's going to continue at least till they have the World Cup 2032 there in Saudi. Maybe after that it can go slower. We will see. But at the moment, I don't see any change. I think it's going to continue.
And if I said to you, you can only watch one league in the world for the rest of your life, do you have a favourite league that you would watch?
Look, I'm going to be 50-50 between Serie A, because Serie A is my league. So I'm Italian, I love Serie A, and Premier League, because I'm a big fan of Premier League. Now, actually, I'm actually watching more Premier League than Serie A at the moment.
Wow, okay, fantastic. Yeah. And obviously, the Premier League, look, it's tagged as the best league in the world. Yeah. We can't prove that, but that's what the Premier League would like you to know. 5 teams have gone into the Champions League this year. You know, we've had as many as 6. Champions League old, Champions League new. Do you have a preference of the formats for the Champions League?
I like this format, to be honest. I like this format because you have the opportunity to have a lot of big games over the first part of the season, and that's obviously also from a journalistic point of view a big opportunity. It's very nice. It's something that maybe with the old format you didn't have. And also, it's always about competitive games. So, you know, you don't have these big teams maybe winning the first 2 games and then just rotating and thinking about the Champions League next in February or in March. You have to be on point till the very end if you want to be in a good table position. So I think it's a very, very nice format. I'm a big fan. You have also more opportunities, and so for me it's very good. I like it.
And we saw in match day 1 where the games were over 3 nights, so Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, culminating in Manchester City versus your beloved Napoli and Newcastle versus Barcelona. That really is putting European football on a massive platform, isn't it? On a Thursday night, you're looking at Barcelona going to St James's Park. Yeah,
and this is something completely new, but to be honest, I like that. I like that because I think it's something new, it's something fresh. I like this format. Of course, it's not going to happen forever about Thursday because of Europa League and all the rest that is going to start, but I like this format, to be fair. I like this format. I hope that many managers, I think this is what's going to happen. In some cases, will understand that rotating a bit more, giving more opportunity to young players is also a chance you have with this Champions League format. So, of course, I'm not saying in all the games, because when you have a big game, you want to see the big players, but there is also the opportunity also for many young players to shine. And so I think it's always a good opportunity for teams to have this kind of format.
It's great for football, though, isn't it, that we're seeing people as far out as Kazakhstan coming into, teams like Celtic obviously getting knocked out before the group stages in the preliminaries. Do you think that it's become too big, or do you think it's the right size, the Champions League at the moment?
I think it's the right size, to be honest. I really like the format how it is right now. So, of course, maybe we'll be able to improve even more in the future. But I like the format now. Compared to the past, I think now we are at a good level.
Okay. And can I push you for a Champions League winner? I know it's very early and we're in the league phase, but is there anyone in Europe right now, or from what you've seen over the summer, that you think they're the ones to watch? Maybe a dark horse, or your usual Real Madrid, etc. What do you see happening in the Champions League?
I think Liverpool are the clear favourites for this season. So if you ask me now, I would say Liverpool, because I think it's also a very European team in terms of the attitude they have under Arne Slot. I think they've been really unlucky last season to face Paris Saint-Germain immediately after being first in the table. So it was really special in a negative way what happened last season, and they found an incredible Donnarumma in front of them. So several factors against Liverpool, but I think this season they are favourites. Then I think another team that can do very well is Chelsea. I think Chelsea are quite underrated in Champions League. I think this team is going to perform better in Champions League than in Premier League for the skills they have.
And is there one particular match that you remember from the Champions League that you think mine is the stereotypical 99 final. I'm a Spurs fan, but Man United obviously in Bayern Munich, that was an epic game. Is there any particular Champions League game that will always stay in your head?
There are many, but there is one I remember as Italian that was really unbelievable to me, and is Roma-Barcelona. When Costas Manolas scored against Barca and Roma were able to beat Barcelona, I still have goosebumps because I don't get how they did it. In terms of level, Barcelona were on a completely different level, but Roma mentality in that game was unbelievable. So that one for me is always going to be special. And
tell us, as someone from London, it's hard for me to understand what happens in Roma when things like that happen. But there is literally people in the streets tooting horns, flags, everything. Explain to us what that's like, that atmosphere.
But look, in Italy, the atmosphere, especially in the south of Italy, Roma, but also Napoli. Napoli is unbelievable. When you have the opportunity to experience these big European games, and then even if it's not even a final, maybe it's a quarter-final or it's a semi-final, you have to celebrate like you won a trophy. At the end, that kind of night is worth a trophy for these clubs. And so it's unbelievable to see the reaction in the streets. People really go there and celebrate for the whole night just for that single game. It's something special. I know in the south of Italy we are like this. We like to celebrate always in general, and we have the opportunity to do that when you have these big games. And you will remember about that forever. At the end, if you think about it, okay, trophies are special, but there are some football fans that love to remember also that moment I was maybe with my son at the stadium and that happened. That will stay in your memory like it was a Champions League trophy. So that's why we react like this.
And as a Napoli fan, when you saw Scott McTominay rock up, did you ever think that he would have the impact he had when you won the league?
Yes. Yeah? To be honest, yes.
Wow, okay.
Being a Premier League fan, I was 100% sure that Scott McTominay was the perfect player for Serie A.
And were people in Napoli, did they share the same opinion, or were they sceptical?
No, I think they were not sceptical. They were quite happy with the signing, but no one was expecting Scott McTominay to be player of the season in Serie A. At the end, he's just a midfielder in Serie A. We're used to see that award always for strikers. So it's very difficult to see that happening. But, I think Scott is the kind of example of the perfect player in terms of mentality, how professional he is, how serious he is, the skills, of course, physical player who can score goals, who can run, perfect for that coach. Antonio Conte is the perfect coach for McTominay, and McTominay is the perfect player for Conte. So it was the perfect mix, and that kind of player in a city like Napoli where you can feel the passion every single day is the perfect mix.
Boy from Scotland does well in Italy. Yeah. And look, we talk there about different perceptions of different teams. Over here in this country, the Europa Conference is kind of sniffed at by teams. We've obviously had the Crystal Palace Nottingham Forest thing at the start of the season. How is the Conference League perceived across Europe?
Look, I think it's improving now. Season by season, many people is starting to respect that, because you have the opportunity also to give to other clubs the chance to celebrate a trophy, which is something that maybe was not happening before. Even Roma won that, to mention an Italian example, a few years ago, and was celebrated in a very special way. So you have the opportunity to win something in Europe. Okay, it might not be Champions League or Europa League, but at the same time, you give the chance to some maybe smaller clubs to dream something big in terms of European football. And so I really respect that, and I feel that many people are starting to respect that competition.
I have to ask you as a Spurs fan, we are the current Europa League holders.
Of course.
That final last year against Manchester United was probably one of the most boring football matches I've ever sat through.
I was there, I agree with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you ever had a game that compares to that? Such an important game. I know games can be nervy, etc. But that really was a poor game for a Europa League final, wasn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It was not entertaining at all, so I agree with you. But every time there is a final with these two big clubs, I still feel this tension, especially when you get at the stadium. I guess if you are just on your sofa at home, it's going to be really boring. But if you are at the stadium, you still feel that maybe people next to you or in front of you are really suffering. They don't care about having entertainment in the moment. They just want the trophy. They just want to experience that moment. And so I feel that if you are at the stadium, you can feel that. Maybe if you're at home, it's completely different. But at the stadium, you see maybe that guy with his kid waiting for that moment, maybe a Tottenham fan or a United fan. So it was still special to me. It was not entertaining, but was still special.
With those words, you're welcome at Tottenham anytime. Moving on to the World Cup. Yeah. You are 32 years old. You've lived through 7 World Cups.
Yeah.
When's your first World Cup memory? When do you remember realising what the FIFA World Cup was?
In 2002. 2002. Yeah.
Japan and South Korea.
Yeah. South Korea, because Italy got eliminated by South Korea, and for us was a crazy shock, really crazy. I remember that game. The referee was something that became historical in Italy. When we think about the referee in Italy, it's still that game, that referee Byron Moreno. So will always stay in our memory. I was a kid. I remember at a swimming pool with my friends. It was summertime, of course. We were watching the game, but that referee started being one of the worst memories of my life. So
you're age 9 and you're watching that at a swimming pool, and you still remember how poor the referee was.
I remember the moment, exactly that moment. Yeah, it was an incredible game. So it was a big shock for the whole country. So I do. And
then obviously we fast forward 4 years on in Germany. You're 13 years old.
Yeah.
Italy win the World Cup. I can't tell you what that feels like being English. How did that feel as a 13-year-old?
The best moment of my life in football, for sure. Because I was 13, but I remember absolutely everything. I was already obsessed with football, so I knew everything about every single team, every single player I was using to play, of course, video games. And so I knew every single player was in the crucial moment of my, of course, football passion. It was really, really important. And then I was with my very best friends at that time, following every single game all together. So I still remember every single moment like it was yesterday. So for me, it was the best memory, because celebrating in that way, it was a difficult summer for Italian football, if you remember what happened with all the Calciopoli scandal.
Yeah.
So to arrive at that World Cup, there was a lot of criticism. And to arrive and win was incredible. And then win in a very Italian way. With passion, always defending at the right time, with Fabio Cannavaro, Ballon d'Or. You have a centre-back as a Ballon d'Or, it's very Italian.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the best moment of my life in terms of football.
And then off the back of that, you fast forward 4 years, you go to South Africa, and Italy don't retain the title.
Yeah.
How does that feel as an Italian fan when you are the World Cup champions and then all of a sudden it's taken away 4 years later?
It was a shame, to be honest, because it's incredible how in few years the level can drop. We were fantastic at that time. Again, if I mention the names, from Totti to Del Piero, Cannavaro as a Ballon d'Or, but there were many others, Sandro Nesta, Materazzi, Buffon, Pirlo. It was unbelievable. Just in few years, the level completely dropped. And I think it's a shame. It's not just about that World Cup. In general, Italian football completely changed in the recent years. And it's a shame for many other generations, because at the end I had the big luck to see my country winning a World Cup, and it's something that will stay in my memory forever. Now we are not even playing World Cups, and that's making many people suffer. Do
you have a favourite World Cup? Obviously, apart from the one you won, are there any that stand out to you?
I think that one for me is my favorite. I have to mention that one, because for me it was on a completely different level. Then I also appreciated the last one. I think the final we had, Argentina, France, with this Messi, Mbappe crazy game was also fantastic to follow, but obviously with different feelings.
And we talked earlier about the Middle East, and obviously it was in Qatar, the last World Cup.
Yeah.
How do you think that went down? Because obviously it did stop the European season, which we are slightly arrogant in Europe, because across the world it does go into other people's seasons wherever you are. So do you think that was a success? Kind of being in the middle of the European season in November?
To be honest, I didn't expect that, because I thought that this was going to be a massive problem for European football, especially. But at the end, it was a success, I think. It was, because it was a fantastic edition of the World Cup, a fantastic and incredible final, and also the organization was very good. To have everything in the same place, at the end, everything went smoothly, was really smart organization, very easy for all the people working there, and so I think it was perfect at the end.
And we fast forward to European qualification. Italy in a group with Norway and Israel, who are very tough. The final group game on Sunday, the 16th of November, is Italy versus Norway in Italy. Do you think that's going to decide the group?
I think, to be honest, I'm already negative. I think
really?
that we are going to fight for the playoffs and see what happens. Because, also in terms of goals difference, it's going to be very difficult. We need a miracle at this point to beat Norway and also have the opportunity to match that score difference. Is going to be very difficult. Very
I don't see you scoring 11 in Moldova. I mean, it's possible, but
no, I don't think it's possible.
Is that a result that made you kind of sit up and go 11? Obviously, Erling Haaland getting 5 as well.
Exactly.
It's off the charts, isn't it?
No, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable for normal people, not for Erling Haaland, who is one of my favorite players in the world. So I expect from Haaland these kind of things. But on Italian point of view, in my opinion, it's going to be playoffs. And let's see what happens there. But it's going to be difficult.
So if you do go into a playoff and you unfortunately don't qualify for the World Cup, how much of a bigger deal is that in Italy?
No, it's going to be a complete disaster. People are going to talk about that for ages. As we already did in the last 2 editions of the World Cup, because again, it was a shame, but now in this group, you had the chance to qualify. This group, Norway are very good, they have Erling, but all the other teams, you had the chance to compete in a better way. Then we had to change the manager during the competition, to go now with Gattuso after Spalletti. It is showing that sometimes the ideas are not that clear, and this is not acceptable for a country like Italy with 4 World Cups not to qualify in the last 3, in this case 3.
And you've mentioned quite a lot of famous names there. In your accent, sound much better than in my accent. Do you have a favourite World Cup player of any World Cup that you've seen? Do you that's the person that makes you remember? I mean, you obviously mentioned Ballon d'Or winners and stuff like that. Is there anyone that you really think that's my favourite player of every World Cup?
For me, Fabio Cannavaro was a reference, because to win, again, the Ballon d'Or as a centre-back is unbelievable. A guy from Napoli like me, I used to play as a centre-back when I played with my friends, so Fabio is always a reference. But as an Italian, I also want to mention Buffon. For us, Buffon has always been a source of pride. For me, Buffon has been the best in history as a goalkeeper, and so to have the chance to see Buffon with my own eyes for many years at the World Cup as well, to win the World Cup, he's always set the example, for a whole generation in Italy, and so for me, Buffon has always been on a different planet.
Is it fair to say as well, in your world, goalkeepers aren't as exciting as, say, strikers? So if a club signs a goalkeeper, it isn't as exciting as if they're signing Erling Haaland, for example, is it?
You're right, but for me, goalkeepers are more than exciting, I feel they are exciting as well as they are in terms of strikers like Haaland and all the others. Like Donnarumma, I am super big fan of Donnarumma, and when City signed Donnarumma in the summer window, I also had this feeling you were mentioning, and many people maybe underrate this signing, just saying, he's a goalkeeper, it can be maybe better of what we had, but not that big difference. I think you can see the difference already now, and you will see the difference very soon, and I think if Paris Saint-Germain won the Champions League, and whatever they won last season, it was unbelievable, is also, but not a small percentage, a big percentage. And I went to all the games of Paris Saint-Germain, what Donnarumma saved against Liverpool, against Arsenal, apart from the final, that he didn't even need to be there. But in all the other games, Donnarumma was unbelievable, and this is going to make the difference.
And we saw, didn't we, as soon as the transfer window had finished, match week 4 was the Manchester derby in the Premier League. That save from Mbeumo on the volley, that almost kind of rubber stamped him as the Pep choice, didn't it?
Yeah, you're right. But also, I feel that Donnarumma sometimes is criticized because, in the past maybe did some mistake with Paris Saint-Germain. I remember with Benzema in that game against Real Madrid. But he's a monster. He's improving a lot also with his feet in terms of building the game from the back. And so I think he's improving a lot. But in terms of mentality, he's a monster. Maybe he struggled in the past when he was not 100% focused because the Paris Saint-Germain was really tense in some moments. Maybe you win the league already easily, and so you get into the Champions League without the right focus, not just him, but all the players. But when there is the focus, there is the right mentality, and you have to get to the target. Look what he did with Italy against England, unfortunately for you, at Wembley that night. But in general, Donnarumma, when there is the target, something to win, you have the mission, Donnarumma is the best one you can have, together with Courtois. I'm also a big fan.
And you've mentioned Wembley there, and you've travelled around Europe, you've travelled around the world in football stadiums. Are there any particular stadiums where you look at them and go, I love it here, this is my palace?
Bernabeu, I'm a big fan. For me, Santiago Bernabeu is incredible. I can just imagine what a player is feeling when you are there at the Bernabeu. Should be something really unbelievable, so I have to mention Bernabeu. Then I want to mention San Siro, because being an Italian guy,
can't not.
when you go to San Siro is incredible. The feeling you have there is incredible. It's pure history, and so San Siro has to be mentioned. And then I will surprise you, but one of the best experiences, I will mention to you 2 of the best experiences I've had in terms of atmosphere. One is in England and is here in London, and is Selhurst Park with Crystal Palace fans. Congrats, because I went there once and was unbelievable, the experience. So congrats to them, because it was...
Is that because of the ultras behind the goal, or
yeah,
it's a bit of an Italian feel?
Maybe it's that, but it was incredible, the atmosphere. It was like a Champions League final. It was a normal Palace Fulham game, so I was completely shocked by that. And similar to that was Betis in Spain.
Wow.
Go to Betis, go to see Sevilla, Betis, the derby. Is unbelievable what they do there.
So if anybody comes to you for recommendations around the world, you're saying go to a Real Betis game and go to a Crystal Palace game.
Exactly.
I don't think that's what people would expect you to say, I'll be honest.
I know, but if you want the experience, that's the case. If you want the big stadium, go to Bernabeu or San Siro.
Okay. And when we're talking about different clubs around the world and we're talking about different players, is there sometimes a little bit of burnout for you? Because you are on the go constantly. You're here in London now with us. You've mentioned to me you're off to Amsterdam as well. You go to different games. Do you have to sometimes just sit and recharge your batteries?
Yeah, luckily I have the moment with the international break. You know, when there is international break, I can take those 2 weeks just to relax a bit more. So try to go away, stay with my family or with my friends, and just disconnect apart from the moment of the games. But during the day, you can really disconnect, because usually, apart from when Bayern decided to fire Nagelsmann and appoint Tuchel, and it was an international break in March. Apart from that moment, usually is relaxing. So you know, I always try to use that moment. But yeah. Probably I would need more. Now with years passing, I will need more of that, because sometimes I arrive really tired, as I told you before, also with my brain during the transfer window. Sometimes you are really, really full of information, full of things, and it's not easy.
And is there a sense of panic? Let's say you are on holiday in an international break and Bayern fire their manager. Are you in a swimming pool and you're rushing to get out of the swimming pool and I've got to get on my phone, and you've probably got lots of media organisations contacting you? Is it a bit of a scramble when stuff like that happens?
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, it's like that. It's like that. Then... yeah, it's not easy, because sometimes you need to manage the relationship you have with normal people. It might be my friends, my family, or whoever, and you need to enter into that kind of work mentality when you didn't expect to do that. You know, if it's during the transfer window, everyone is expecting that from me, even myself. But when it's out of the transfer window, and maybe it's during an international break, like that Nagelsmann-Tuchel story, I spent like 6-7 hours, super excited about the situation, but wasn't expected, so I wasn't probably ready. But then the adrenaline you have in those moments is unbelievable.
And we've talked a lot about your career and your favourite things, and then you end up in a video game in EAFC 25 with your catchphrase, with your likeness. What is that process? Do they send you pictures of what you look like and you approve them, or do they just do you as a character? Talk us through how that process works.
Yeah, they asked me for some pictures and I had to send them. But to be honest, when this happened, for me was one of the biggest surprises of my career, because I didn't expect that at all. Again, as I told you, I'm a big video games fan, so I started playing when I was maybe 8 or 9, and I still play a lot with my friends. It's one of the things I like to do to disconnect sometimes, you know, to maybe spend 1 or 2 hours playing some video games with my friends. And to be into that video game that has always been my favorite since I was a kid. I played probably 97% of my time at that video game and 3% on all the others. It's unbelievable. And also you have the chance to reach a lot of generations of young kids who can find out who you are. And it's a special feeling to me. So when they ask me, okay, would you like to do that? Let's try to negotiate. I say, let's do whatever you want. In that case, for me, it was just about the dream, you know? And even my mother, I remember, she said, I remember how much time I spent telling you, stop playing that game and go to study. And now you are inside. How is this possible?
Wonderful. And I've saved the best question to near the end. You have a catchphrase, here we go, and everybody knows it. And as I mentioned before, when that is said, we know the transfer is done, deal. There's no going back on it. So did that evolve naturally? Did you do it once and it worked? Talk us through how you came to use that.
That was completely random. I wasn't planning for that. Maybe sometimes people can think that maybe it was decided with a strategy with someone, an agent or whoever. No, but in that case it was just me tweeting. I don't even remember the transfer. It was a long time ago about a Man United transfer. Then I put a small line saying here we go for something like, okay, after 2-3 weeks updating you, finally we are done. It's a here we go. And then all people started reacting like, can you say the same also for Liverpool, Real Madrid, Barcelona or whatever? So I said, okay, let's do that. I started, and maybe I had a feeling that people were missing catchphrase or some way to tell them when, okay, there is an agreement in place. Because maybe sometimes journalists can tell you, okay, the deal is advanced, the deal is almost done, but you don't have that feeling that now, okay, the player is going to come join my club. And so maybe they needed that step. Now, sometimes it can change because, as I always say, I can't sign contracts. I can't undergo medicals, I can't publish official statements.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can say, here we go, because there is a verbal agreement between all parties involved. Maybe the player is having a medical, like Mark Gahey with Liverpool, and then something can happen and change the story. But for me, it's still a here we go, because I'm telling you when the deal is agreed, when the player is undergoing a medical. Then if the medical is failed, if there is a problem on the documents, if they don't get the documents in time on deadline day, there are many reasons why a deal can collapse. But if they want me to wait for that signing stage, it's too late. You have the official statement, so you don't need Fabrizio or any other journalist to share the story.
And when you're out for dinner with friends, family, I'm sure people come up to you. It's you. Yeah. Say it. Are you ever going to get bored, or do you get bored of people rushing up to you? Say it. Can you say it, or can you say it for my friend?
Never.
Does that become annoying?
No, it never happened to me to be annoyed by that, because I've been on the other side. When I was a kid, I was going around and asking players for maybe a pictures or a message for my friends. And so I would never, ever do that. No one has been annoying with me. Maybe I'm lucky, but I would never say no. So even when I go to the stadium and sometimes they say, oh, we have to go, I prefer to stay there and take all the pictures possible, because for me it's still incredible this, you know. I still don't understand why this is happening. So if I can spend some time with people following me, I'm more than happy.
And what's next for you? Look, we've talked about lots of things. We've talked about football. We've talked about social life. You mentioned you're single because you don't have time. So is it one of those things? Where does your life go next? You've got your whole life ahead of you. What is next for Fabrizio Romano?
I think what is next is to try to change the way I'm using to inform people. So I still obviously want to work into the transfer world, but I want to do that on a more quality point of view, less quantity. So probably all the amount of information posted every single day is what helped my platform to become big. So for sure, I'm grateful for that, because it started the whole movement. But now I'm having a feeling that I want to do a bit less. I want to arrive maybe at the start or at the end of the story. Maybe to leave a bit more all the negotiation updates. That is something I'm still doing because I think people is interested. But sometimes they get bored about that. If they do, for me, is also a message that I need to understand, to have this feedback. And so now what I want to do, starting also from 2026, also because there is the World Cup, I will be there, and probably I can't be able to work on transfers at the same level I can be when I'm relaxed and working and focusing only on that. My mission is to do more quality, just reporting big breaking news, big here we go, and maybe less daily updates that maybe can be done on a different way, maybe on a video, you can find that there, but less on my platforms.
And if you had a time machine, what would you say to that little boy growing up in Naples? What would you go back and say to him?
Good question. Maybe spend more time with your family. That's the only thing I would try to do, because I'm sure one day I will regret about that. But at the same time, I feel that my family can be proud of myself, and so maybe I save myself in this situation, saying that, okay, maybe I didn't spend the time I wanted to spend, maybe with my mother, with my father, with some of my friends. But at the same time, they can be, I hope, proud, because I did my best to try to be successful in my world and always being respectful with all people I know.
And is there one stadium around the world that you haven't been that you want to go to?
La Bombonera.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah, it's impossible for me that I didn't went there again yet, so I don't understand why I didn't.
Have you planned it?
No, because I always say I want to go to Argentina and spend maybe 2 weeks there. I don't want to go 1 or 2 days, because it's no sense to go there just for 2 days. I want to enjoy maybe the country, to see different places. But by saying that, I'm never going at the same time, and so I want to go. I'm planning to go as soon as possible.
So when we see each other again, we'll do an interview in that stadium, yes?
Okay, perfect. In Spanish.
But, okay, I'll practice. I'll try my best. Okay. Fabrizio Romano, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Our company, Liberty Rock, have commissioned a very special shirt.
Nice.
So we've got that shirt just there, just show there. And as you are the first guest, we thought it might be nice for you to have on the back, just like that.
Thank you.
So that is yours to keep, sir.
Nice, thank you.
We thank you again for coming. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Super cool. Thanks a lot.